Hi guys, this is David. Welcome to this final training video about getting to the advanced level in Microsoft Excel while building a dashboard. So we've gathered our data from the web. We've started to build our dashboards. We have our data table already. It's dynamic. It's not quite done yet, but almost. But we need to add a few things. We need to add the rankings, the chart, and a macro also to reset our selections. So that's going to be what we're going to do in this final video. So going back to our table, sure, okay, it's starting to look like nice, but it would be good to apply some formatting. But the formatting might be different depending on the size of your data. Currently, it's a very long list, but if it's a more shorter list, obviously my format had has to adjust accordingly. So how are we going to do that? Let's select our data all the way down, and let's go to the home menu and choose conditional formatting, manage rules. Let's create a new rule. For that, we are going to use a formula. And the formula is equals the first cell to the left on top of our table is B26, so equals B26. Make sure there's no dollar signs. Different than, so lower than, greater than, nothing. So pretty much, if it's not empty, then do something to the format. So what is the format that we want? Let's click on format. We want a border and we want the outline. Let's click on OK. And let's click on OK again. And now we have a rule. Let's apply. And it seems to be working. Now, same thing. We need color for the headers. So now I'm going to select my headers only. Conditional formatting, manage rules, new rule. We're still going to use pretty much the same formula to determine which cells we want to format. And again, formula is equal B26, different than nothing, format, and now we want a field. We're going to pick blue, and the font, we're going to choose white. Click on OK, click on OK, click on Apply, click on OK. And now let's try already when we check on and check. There you go. So our last two columns are now fully dynamic. But let's also validate with our filters. So selecting Europe and Western Europe. All right, perfect. So you can see that now it's applying the borders and the color for the headers dynamically. For the change, we can change the format of the data. So we probably need to adjust that. Let's make sure we go back to all. And for the change, selecting all of my values, I'm going to leverage Accelerator, the Excel add-in that I've built. Accelerator, numbers, and then highlight variations with arrows. These should be percentages. So I'm going to choose the last options, value as percentage, click on OK. And now I have a nicely formatted column where it's very easy to see whether there was an increase or a decrease year over year. If you do not have Accelerator, let me show you the code that you can use while formatting. That would be here. Pretty much saying if it's positive, then make it blue with the up arrow and format as percentage. And if it's negative, make it red with a down arrow and make it a percentage. If you have Accelerator, again, it's much easier. Let's click on OK. For my population numbers, again, just like applying some formatting. Let's go to numbers. I'm going to use the number format. Obviously, no decimals because we're talking about people. We want to apply the thousand separator. All right, now it looks better. I'm going to make my columns a little bigger. All right, looks much nicer. So now we need to create the tables for the top three increases and the top three decreases. So in cell G6 through H6, we're going to merge and we're going to call it top three increases. And now top three, top two, that was a typo. All right, and now in cell G7, same thing. We want to get two columns. One should be obviously the country, and the other one should be the percentage, like change. So if you take a look at our data, that's column number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 1 and 6. The country and the change, 1 and 6. Equals, choose columns, because we want to select just like two columns. And we want to sort our data because, sure, we're going to apply a filter to only return 1, 2, and 3. But based on the data, it could return 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 3. We want 1, 2, 3. So we want to sort. So sort, opening parentheses, and I need to filter my data set. So filter, I want to filter my data. What is the condition? That's going to be based on my data and the field called rank top. And I have plenty of values, but pretty much I want to return 1, 2, and 3. So pretty much lower than 4. That's my condition. The index, that's going to be 7. And then ascending order again. Closing parentheses, comma, and within accolades, specifying the columns that I want. That's going to be 1 and 6. So 1, semicolons, 6, closing the accolade, closing the parentheses, and now it's returning on my top three increases. So it looks like it's Syria, Moldova, and Niger. And again, now I can apply a nice format, again, using the same number format from Accelerator. All right. And it's going to be very similar for the top three decreases. It's going to be probably like here. We're going to merge the cell, merge and center. This time it's going to be called top three decreases. And I'm going to use pretty much like the same formula because it's very similar. We're going to make some adjustments. Except that now, obviously, it's not going to be rank top. It's going to be rank bottom. It's still going to be like lower than 4. But now, instead of being 1 for ascending, it's going to be descending. So -1. All right. So 3 countries. The very first one is actually, is a British territory, and then Ukraine and Hungary. Changing the format. And now it's just purely cosmetic, applying borders, changing the color, making it pretty. All right, so now we are done with our rankings with the top three increases, top three decreases. So now we want insights within like text. The first step is to create a spin button. And again, that's going to be found on the developer tab. So let's go to the developer tab. And again, under insert, we want to select the spin button and the form control. So let's select it. Again, we have to place it on a spreadsheet, so around like B18 or so, like that. Okay, we have our spin button. Let's make a right click on it and choose Format Control. Here again, we want to provide some values. So I need to actually take a step back and take a look at my data. It's going to be based on the percentage like cumulated. Obviously, we need to return a value that is lower than 100 because percentage cumulated is never going to be greater than 100%. So, or 1, if you will, but 100%, 100. And then the lowest value uh, should also not be lower than the first value, which is already almost at 18. So we want to make sure that 18 is the minimum and 100 is the maximum. And we can change the value by increments of 1. So I can go back to the dashboard tab, again, make a right click, format control. What's the minimum value? So we said that it should be 18. What's the maximum value? Definitely not 30,000, but 100. Incremental change 1. And the cell link, we're going to go to the config tab, and this time we're going to choose L4. All right, let's click on OK. Now, what's happening when I'm clicking on it? Going back to the config tab, it's currently at 38. So I guess I pressed 20 times because the minimum was 18. And after pressing quite a few times, now it's at 38. Same thing, if I press down once on the config tab, now it's down to 37. Let's go back to the dashboard tab. And now in cell, well, like C18, we're going to type our formula. So what we want to say is, like, why the world is made out of, like, and the number of countries in the world. X% of countries of the population, X% of the population of the world is concentrated in the first X countries to give us an idea how like disproportionate like the population like is all over the world. We ignore like with big, very dense areas in areas that are clearly like not populated. So here's the formula: equals double quotes because that's going to start with text, while the world is made out of space, closing the quotes, because next we want to have like a value written by a formula. So and the ampersand like sign, count A. So all the values that are not empty, and it's going to be the number of values in the country field in my data table. So that's going to be my data and the field called country. So let's see what happens if I press like enter. So it says while the word is made out of 238. So I need to finish my sentence. So let's go back to my formula, and I'm going to add and, or ampersand like signs, double quote, space, countries, comma, space, double quotes, and now I need to bring the value from my spinner. So and I'm going to select config L4, and let's press enter. So now, while the world is made out of 238 countries, 37, I need to finish my sentence, and it's going to be 37% of the population is concentrated in the first, and I need another formula. So let's go back, config L4, and double quotes, percent of the world or the population is concentrated in the first space, double quotes, pressing enter to see what's happening. Okay, so far so good. In the first what? And now obviously I need to find the value within my table that will match, or that will be the closest to 37. So in my case, let's go back to data. And so 37, obviously, C37, that I have 35 with the first two, which is not enough. So I need to get that value here, pretty much, like the first three. So 3 is ideally, by using match, the match function, it will return like that value here. And therefore, it's not quite enough to match, so I need to add +1 to the result of my match. So let's finish our formula. In the first what, and match. So what am I looking for? My data here, but it's 37. It needs to be 37%, so it needs to be divided by 100. Where am I looking up on my data? That's within my table called my data, and the field called percentage cumulated, comma, match type, and I'm going to choose like less than, okay, and then like +1 to make sure that the value is correct, and double quotes, space, countries. All right. All right. And now, while the world is made out of like 238 countries, 37% of the population is concentrated in the first three countries, which is crazy. I'm going to merge and center. And now let's try, like our spinner. And see, as I change the value, it's changing the number of countries. So let's put 80. So I love the 80-20 rule. So while the world is made of like 238 countries, 80% of the population is concentrated in the first 36 countries. So, in other words, 200 countries in the world represent only 20% of the world population. And when we see the values for India and China, that is not surprising because they are in billion, of people, and obviously, there's not the same density, like all over the world. All right. Now we're gonna go to cell C19, and we want to display the number of increases and the number of decreases, like year over year from 22 to 23. So this one is going to be more static because it's not driven by the spin button, but it's still going to provide some insights in a sentence. Equals, double quotes, out of, and we want to get like our number of countries. So out of space, double quotes, and count A. What do we want to count? Everything in my data and country. Closing parentheses to close the count A. So let's press enter. So like out of 238. Okay. Let's go back to our formula. And double quotes, space, countries, comma, space, double quotes, and now we need to count where like the change column in my data table is greater than 0. So it's going to be a count if. So count if what is known like my field. Again, it's my data, and the field is change, comma, what's the criteria within double quotes? It's greater than 0. That's for the increases. Closing parentheses. If I press enter, so I know I have 197 like countries with an increase. So let's finish the sentence. And double quotes, space, countries. So an increase in population, comma, while, space, double quotes, and I'm gonna be lazy and copy that formula because it's very similar, and space, pasting it, but now instead of being like greater than, it's gonna be lower than 0. I don't need to account for like equal, because that would mean that a country had absolutely no change with the same value, which is extremely unlikely. So I don't need to account for the case where it would be equal to 0, just greater or lower than. Okay, and then and, finishing my sentence, double quote, space, so a decrease, double quotes, pressing enter. Again, I'm going to merge and center. I'm just making it more like pretty, applying some cool formatting thanks to Elevator. So the style, it's going to be like sunken. This way it looks great. Same thing here. Sunken, but the regions will look like button with raised. And also change the color. So that is like purely cosmetic. All right. So now we're going to tackle macros. So to add the macro, we need to go to Visual Basic first. We're going to create the code, and then we will create a button and assign the macro to it. So now that we have the Developer tab, we can go to it on the Excel ribbon and choose Visual Basic. It's already showing the code because that's what I had on my other workbook when I showed you the dashboard. But in our case, my workbook is called Book 2. And first, I need to select it and insert a module. And now I have a new module called Module 1. and that's where we need to create our macro. We're going to call it reset. And so the way it works, you just start with sub, reset, the name of the macro, and then within parentheses. As you press enter, automatically Excel and Visual Basic will fix your code, make it things no lowercase, uppercase, or proper. So you don't need to worry about it, which is nice compared to other programming languages. So what do we need to do to reset? So on our current tab, we need to change that value here in C23 to all. We need to change the value in C24 to all. And we need to uncheck the button, which is done by going to the config tab and changing to true to make it checked. And again, the macro is going to be launched from the dashboard tab. So let's go back to Visual Basic. And that means that first we're going to start with the selections. So range, double quotes. I'm going to start with C24 by the subregion. So my range dot value. I'm assigning a value to range C24, and I'm going to assign the value all. The next line of code is going to be very similar, but this time it's going to be 23. So now with those two lines of code, it's resetting my two drop-down menus, assigning all to both of them. Now I also need to change the value for my checkbox, and that's located on the config tab, and the range is S4, so it's F4. So I also need to specify the sheets, because now when I launch the macro from the dashboard tab, I need to say, hey, don't select F4 on the current tab, but on the config like tab. So again, sheets is going to ask me for a number, but I can provide a name, config, and then dot range. What is the range? That's going to be F4 dot value equals true. And actually, I should put true within double quotes. All right. Now I could leave it like as is, but just in case, I also want to display like a message telling me that everything like has been reset. So we're going to add a message box. Pressing enter, MSG box space, and then within double quotes, my message, all selections removed, exclamation point, double quotes, comma, the type of a message box, and it's just for information. So it's going to be VB information, comma, and the title of my box, and I'm going to call it confirmation. All right, so now I have a macro called reset. I can close Visual Basic, and now I need to add a button. And again, I'm going to find the button on the Developer tab. Insert, Form Control on the very first option is for button. So I'm going to add my button here. I need to assign the macro called reset. Click on OK. I'm going to make a right click to edit the text because obviously I don't want to call my button button 8. I'm going to call it reset selections. All right, so now let's play with my selections and let's test the reset button. So I'm going to select Oceania and Australia and New Zealand. So, well, just two countries. And I'm going to uncheck my box. And now I want to go back to showing everything. So all, and my last two columns. Confirmation, all selections removed, clicking on OK, and everything is back to how it was. Now the thing is, because we added a macro, if you want to save your workbook, the extension will change. It has to be a macro enabled Excel file, and therefore the format, the extension will be XLSM. So not the regular XLSX. So macro enabled. Now we're going to create our chart. In the chart, we want to display a tree map chart showing by continent the population. It's a very good chart for that type of data, so that's what we want. However, we don't really have our data ready to create a chart. So we're going to have to go back to Power Query and create a specific data set to get our data, our population for 2023 by continent. So to do so, to go back to Power Query, we're going to make a right click on our existing query and choose Edit. Automatically, it's going to bring us back to the Power Query editor. And I'm going to be very lazy. I'm going to duplicate my existing data set by making a right click and choosing Duplicate. And I'm going to change the name. I can do that as well here by making a right click, choosing Rename, and I'm going to call it Summary. All right, so clicking on Summary. Now I need pretty much to group my data by the region. Well, if you take a look, there is an option to do just that, Group By. So Group By, and I want to group by a region. What is going to be my new column name is like Pop 2023. I can change it like later, so it's okay. Do I want the count of rows? No, I want the sum. I want the sum of what? Of population 2023. All right, let's click on OK. And it's done. And as you can see now, I have what usually I would get in Excel through a pivot table, but I was able to make it even much faster using Power Query. And now I'm going to send the data back to the config tab, and I will use that data to create my chart. So close and load to, and again, I want to go, well, first as a table, yes, but not in a new worksheet, existing worksheet. I'm going to remove the current reference, go to the config tab, selecting P4, clicking on OK. It's done. So now going to the config tab, I have my data here, and I can create my chart by selecting my data, going to insert, and then expanding the chart menu, all chart, and it's going to be the tree map. Yes, that's the one I want. Clicking on OK. Well, obviously, the chart is not located where I want it to be, so I can make a right click on it, and I'm going to move the chart as an object. Yes, not in config, but on the dashboard tab. Clicking on OK, and now I just got moved to the tab that I want, the dashboard tab. I can change the title. I can double click on it and edit it, and it's going to be population by region. Obviously, because I have the labels already, I don't need to have the legend. So I can click on it and press delete to remove it. That makes more room for my chart. Because Oceania is so small, we can barely see it, and that's unfortunate. But I still want to display also by numbers. Sure, I can see visually that Asia is by far the largest continent by population, but I want to display the name, but also the values. So I'm going to click on it, make a right click, and do Format Data Labels. And from here, I can see the category name is already selected, but now I want the value as well. My numbers are not formatted correctly, so I need to go to number, and I'm going to change to number, put 0 decimals using the thousand operator, and now it looks much better. I can again adjust my chart. And from here, of course, I can add uh, my title for my dashboard, so merge and center, make it white, make it blue, and calling it world population. Going back to alignment, I'm going to center my text, making it probably bigger. And under the view tab, I want to remove the grid lines. This way, it's much nicer. I'm going to close my pane. For the chart, do I want the border? Not necessarily. So format chart area. Do I want a border? No line. Okay, looks better. And now, guys, we are done. We created our dashboard. It is fully dynamic, gathering data from the web. If I wanted to refresh my data, I can go to the data tab, go to queries and connection. And all I have to do is either on the data tab, like refresh all, and it will refresh my main data set with all of my countries and my summary as well, or just the data and one by one. But it's definitely easier to go to the data tab and refresh all, and it will connect to the web page. It will retrieve the data, will refresh the data here on the data tab, and will refresh all of the values here as well. And just like that, we've created a fully dynamic dashboard with, again, a chart, rankings, insights within sentences, a spin button, a checkbox, a macro, cascading drop-down menus, data with conditional formatting based on our selection. And just like this, you've become an advanced Excel user. So thanks for watching. I hope it was useful to you guys. Let me know what you think, and I will see you guys in the next training.